So next up, I'd like to introduce Sweetbriar Farm. For more than 70 years, with more than 70 years of experience commercially growing plants, for more than 30 years, Tamara and Doug ran a two-plant business that they founded. One a wholesale plant nursery and the other a design-build landscape company. Both were located in the greater Seattle area. Doug was responsible for designing and installing the landscape at the hamlets. He also developed the original plantings around the Lopez Community Center. He's the author of Northwest Foraging, I did not know that, a book about the edible and poisonous wild plants of the Pacific Northwest. They started Sweetbriar Farm on Center Road 15 years ago. Their efforts and success with it inspired Sue Roundy to create a book called Bounty in 2014. Between Tamara and Doug, they have approximately 100 years of professional plant experience. So, take it away.
Thank you, Lynn. So let's see. Probably. Better start by getting dressed.
Okay, boss.
So there are here in the audience some Sweetbriar volunteers. That's one thing that's unique about the Sweetbriar. And that is we operate through community volunteers. For example, Pat, can you stand up? She's a long-time volunteer. As a matter of fact, there are 6 volunteers who are currently at the Sweetbriar and who have, what did you decide? Started volunteering and
maybe that's years ago.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably better get it on correctly here.
That's a good idea.
It'd be amazing to believe, but this is what I put on every time we work on the farm.
There you go.
These are green jeans. They have pads inside them. So when you get down on the ground, you're automatically on the pads. Works real nicely that way. I always carry my slippers with me. Always have a tape measure, because when we put out planting strips, they're all done on a very precise setting, so that the weeding is really easy to do. And then I almost always have my hat that Dixie gave me a number of years ago. I originated the gleaning group about here on Lopez in 2011 and did it for 3 years. And at that time, Tamara and I had purchased our piece of property, and I got involved in doing the agriculture at that point. And there wasn't enough time in the day, or at least I chose to emphasize my time at the Sweetbriar, and I gave up the gleaning. And a couple of years later, Dixie took over, did a great job of getting it going the way it is right now. So I'd like to start with a 3-minute presentation, and then we'll do this with the PowerPoint, and then probably just a few minutes in terms of talking about the Sweetbriar, but the bulk of the time I'd like to leave it up to any questions that you may have. So this 3-minute presentation will give you, I think, a sense of the history of the Sweetbriar and what we do on a day in and day out basis and season to season. The Sweetbriar has a heart-driven message. Our goal is to grow community relationships and food from the ground up. I think I'll give you a little bit of background and say this is a presentation that we developed with PowerPoint basically and the words in terms of making an application for a grant, and you'll hear more about that in a bit. Situated on remote Lopez Island on coastal Salish lands in Washington State, the Sweetbriar Farm is a productive 5 acres owned by Doug Benoliel and Tamara Buchanan. Our mission is to create and foster a space of learning, tending land, growing real organic food, and building community and relationships. All of the produce is donated to feed food insecure on our island. For the past 15 years, Doug and Tam have tended the land for the purpose of producing food. Volunteers from the community on Lopez Island have helped steward the land and with the primary purpose of growing food for local folks in need. Volunteers working side by side learn how to grow their own food and vegetables and appreciate the value of well-grown organic food. The importance of community effort has continuously bolstered the spirit of all involved. In an emergency response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the Sweetbriar Farm concentrated more of its energy into finding creative solutions to bringing neighbors together with a common goal of building community through growing real food together. In 2020, the Sweetbriar Farm partnered with the nonprofit organization Lopez Island Family Resource Center, which has a food bank program within its organization to successfully deliver thousands of pounds of locally grown food. Over 5,000 pounds of fresh produce has been donated to Lopez Island Family Resource Center this year alone. Over the last 5 years, it is about 16,000 pounds. We enrich the soil with nutritious organic matter, like duck bedding and composted fertile mulch, as well as crop covering and crop rotation. We avoid all petrochemicals and instead use OMRI, that's Organic Materials Research Institute, products such as feather meal, bone meal, and kelp meal. Doug and Tamara have invested their own money over the years in order to realize this vision that cannot continue on their own and need help. In its essence, the Sweetbriar Farm is a potent, multifaceted, natural remedy for these shifting times. Help us expand on vision by continuing to grow more food for more people, while also creating a safe place that fosters community, relationships, healing with each other, and healing with the land. The Sweetbriar Farm needs your support. All volunteers, all hands working together, all food donated to the people of Lopez Island, all for the healing of the world. Not always this shirt on a work day and farm, but most of the time it's not this, then it's my deck of Hawaiian shirts. Let's see. So we grow our vegetables on 5 acres. It's fenced. It's or to deal with the rabbits and to deal with the deer in particular. A lot of annual vegetables, you've heard in terms of the kind of pounds that we produce. We also have some perennial plants like asparagus and strawberries, raspberries, and an orchard of about 40 trees, mostly apples. Can you hear me okay without this mic? That helps me a lot. Okay, I'll just raise my voice a little bit. So there also is an orchard of about 40 trees, which is mostly a pear, apple, and plum. We irrigate with a pond, like Mark talked about. I'm envious of his pond. It's about several times larger than mine. We always have plenty of water to accommodate our pond. It goes down about 3 feet each year. Then with 1 inch of rainfall sometime in December or January, when the soils are fully saturated, the pond fills up this much water instantly. We use both drip irrigation as well as overhead irrigation. When we use, each of them has their own advantage and disadvantages. When we use the drip irrigation, like 3 years ago, that's all I used for drip. We had nearly a mile worth of tape in the ground, so that's 5,000 feet. Most of the plants we raise from seed and cells. So we have small little seedlings that go into the ground. There's advantages of doing it that way. You get a jump on some of the vegetable predators like slugs. It also allows one to have raised a plant which is now maybe about this tall and 2 months old or 3 months old to be put in the ground immediately after you take out a row of, let's say, lettuce, that you harvest the whole row of lettuce. Boom, next day you can be planting plants in the ground that have already had a great start.
Do they have to start in a greenhouse?
Okay, we have, I think the short answer to your question is yes. We have a light cart which has, which allows us to have a very large cart that we can have on the cart both light and it comes on automatically and we'll raise the seedlings and they'll be on that light cart for about, depending on the type of plant, but approximately a month. And then they'll go into an unheated greenhouse and they'll be in that setting for about another month. And then they'll go into what we call a tube house or an unheated greenhouse outside. You see this once that cuts the same thing. And they'll be in there getting acclimated to the real life conditions for, again, depending on circumstances, a couple of weeks to even on a couple of months. And then they go into the ground. Very few things do we plant directly with seeds, but examples would be peas and beans and carrots. Most everything else is done with small propagula or small plants. As you understood before, we don't use any petrochemical fertilizer, which is what most, well, anyway, what we use are other things like bone meal and feather meal that have elements within them that are essential for the plants that grow like nitrogen. We also lime and use gypsum, which is another calcium-based product. And also boron. What I find our soils are missing mostly is calcium, which you can get in both the gypsum form, but also agricultural lime, and boron. Our soils tend to be deficient in boron. The problem with boron is soils need just a little bit of boron, something and I put it on our soil in the form of borax, European borax. But it's only a ½ pound per 1,000 square feet. And that's pretty minimal. This room right here alone, you'd use 1 pound in this area. So how do you distribute, that much pretty hard. And the problem is that it's also toxic to plants if it's done at too great a. So we do some, that's the kind of the fertilizing or soil amendments that we end up doing to a great extent.
So then, do you fertilize it before you?
Can you hold, let me just get a couple more, just because we'll do a lot of that in a second. So I just wanted to see, what else do I want to say? I think I'd like to share, so the volunteers, a bit about the volunteers, because it's an important part of what we do at the farm. And this last year, I'll give you an example that way, because each year it changes. Last year, it was 2 days during the week. On Tuesday and on Fridays, we got together. Friday was developed because many of the volunteers, there's currently about 17 volunteers from our community. It worked real well for a lot of people Friday. The reason we went for Tuesday was because a lot of the produce that we have, it's donated to Family Resource Center, and they distribute the food on Wednesday, the following day. So we wanted to have those two be connected as much as possible. The time of harvesting and the time that it gets distributed, minimal storage time. Volunteers work now, this time of year. We were together just last week, and we harvested what amounted to 2 boxes, I think it was, of both kale. We raised 7 different types of kale, but also collard green. And that went to the Family Resource Center, the food share program. Most of the harvesting that we do, as you might imagine, more like June, July, August, September, even into October. During that period of time, on the average, it's about 14 boxes of vegetables that we donate. We donate, this is the way I envision it, and what I try to implement, is I want to back up and say this, that there are benefits of being volunteering. And one of those benefits is that I invite volunteers to take any 3 items that we have that we're giving to like the Family Resource Center. So it could be a bundle of kale, it could be a head of lettuce, it could be a bunch of radishes, that his or her 3 items. One of the benefits is a learning opportunity. Do a lot of instruction in terms of what we're doing and why, rather than just do the project. No, I think a lot of the fun is understanding how it fits into the context, not only of the day, the season, but even the year. Of why are we doing it this way? We have reasons to do it that way. And we make a lot of changes. One of the things that I thank volunteers for almost every time we're done, and that volunteer times are 2 hours, is I thank them for their flexibility and being willing to change. Because I change. On a moment's notice, I see that something's happening, and I have to make a change right there. Pretty dynamic situation. Well, I think I went off target. Okay. I think that I wanted to indicate that so I think of the volunteers, first of all, they are the first people who have choice of vegetables that we're harvesting. We also donate to, as I mentioned before, the Family Resource Center, the food share program. We donate to the Rural program that's run by the Lopez local boards and a senior center. And then we have started donating to the Hamlet or the Hamlet House. Everybody know about the Hamlet House? Okay. Well, I probably could say a whole bunch more, And I probably will questions. But let me just be finished with that. I think it gives a little bit of an idea about what we do, what our mission is. Yeah, so what questions do you have?
Everything you do, so like rotating the crops and when they reach their peak and everything else.
Do I have records?
Yes. Well, so.
Yes.
Extensive record.
Oh, yeah, right. So
Okay.
15 pages, just propagation records. When did we seed those plants? What time of the year? Where did this, how old are the seeds? What year were they? How old are the seeds? And what type of cells we use to propagate, sometimes what media, who does the seeding? And then I check to make sure what the propagation rate was, like if we have 50% or 100% germination out of that. Then those same pages are used to refer to the success of that plant in the field. Yeah.
Do you know how Andy Hollins?
Could say that-
Andy and Dolly Holland? They lived on the south end.
No. Any other questions?
What's the next years for garden seeds?
Okay. What soil base do I use? I use one with relatively inert, and it's called Sunshine 4. And it's nice that it's available that I don't know if it's Sunshine 4. It comes in a bale, weighs about 60 pounds, it costs in the rate of $50 a bale. That's
Yes, it does have some, that seed starting soil in smaller bag.
okay. I need your help. I've had new irrigation, I'm going to do some. Please, yes.
Okay, I love your pants. Where do you get it?
Well, the last pair I got it paid at me.
Oh.
They're called green jeans. Sunset used to have them. It is made by a company Sweetbriar. And I don't know where you get it.
And then my other question is, you must have a wash station, so you have all this produce that goes out. And you don't wanna have dirt on it.
Yeah, so everybody hear her question? Okay. So we don't sell this, we don't provide in a ready fashion. This is coming right off the farm. So you might find select in it, you might find earwigs in it, any of that. And there might be some dirt in it. Do we try to get the dirt off? Yes. We scrub the carrots, ditto the beets. But we don't send it through the washing. Yes.
Do you say that if you're on seed, you buy it each year, combination?
Yeah, good question. So are we saving our seeds or do we buy it? Mostly I buy the seeds and I'll get into that in just a second. We do save some of the seeds, but what I find is there's only one flock in the day. And how do I find the seeds we do save would be ones in which we can't get the seeds elsewhere. Some of the beans are like that. And some of them we save because it's easy to do, lettuce is easy to do. Easy to do with the seed. That part is so. Now, having said that, I talked to my first a fine stainless steel sack of or box of stiff for seed. So maybe I'll be saving more, but what I have decided to do is to preserve our seeds in a way that we're more likely to go on their viability. So all of our seeds are in the refrigerator, First of all, the shoebox, clear shoebox has a desiccant in it. And then all the seeds are placed in these boxes. You have 4 of the boxes. And every set of seeds, like say radish seeds, they're in a sealed, Ziploc bag that says radish. It'd be 2, 3, 4 different types of seeds in there. So they're protected because they're having very much being exposed to the moisture, being the bag, but also the box in the desert. Then there's some things that they're starting to do, when you put some of the seeds in the freezer. You have to be careful about how to do that. But I do it, but what I choose to do is buy seeds in large quantities, out like 10 years at a time. Knowing that I'll take out a 2 year supply and I'll put that in the refrigerator, kind of arrangement that I just mentioned, and put all the rest of it into the freezer. The freezer basically puts suspended animation, as long as I'm careful about how I take them out. What's the most damaging you can see is fluctuation of temperature in terms of storage, fluctuation of temperature, moisture. Particularly, nominally light. It's the moisture that really is.
Did you start this?
Could you?
Did you grow up doing this when you were young?
The family, lore is like started when I was 4 years old, when I successfully planted, lettuce plants. I planted a family garden.
Okay.
But I do have a sense that, I think back about my life, like it's always been plants. Whether they're plants that I eat, and that's what we're talking about here, or let me share this. This is a book I wrote, Northwest Fortune, and it celebrated, I celebrated this year in September was its 50th year. It was published 50 years ago. And it's well, I guess it's too about the same thing we're talking about here, edible plants, but it's the wild ones here in the Pacific Northwest and the poisonous ones that are relevant. Then I was fortunate enough to fully revise the book. This is 2011. And this one should be available at our bookstore.
What's the title?
It's Northwest Foraging, the classic guide to edible plants in the Northwest. This is a funny little story. So this is an original copy. This is the 4th printing, with the last printing of this. And this is the 1st edition. And it was in 1988. So Amazon has this on sale for anywhere, different parts of the world, anywhere from $100 to $300. But it's simply because it's an original publication, and it's a new book. Well, the other thing I want to show you are two books. So this is what in the introduction. This is the balance. This is the book that Sue Roundy put together in 2013. Very local book. There were local artists, 3 local artists. There was local author, local chef. Here.
You know, I love that book, and I've been wanting to go around and get everybody's autograph on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, each farmer has a section.
Oh, okay. We got the autograph.
Where can we get the book?
Well, you should be able to get it at our bookstore. If not, you should ask them. So this is not This is the Sweetbriar, that picture from Sweetbriar Farm that Robert Harrison took in 2013, and then this came out in 2014. And the other thing I want to share is if you're interested in vegetable gardening, I'd recommend this book above all other books at this point. There are other books, they're great, but this is called Backyard Bounty. It's done by Linda Gilbertson. And the great thing about it, not only is she extremely knowledgeable, but she's done her life. She's a PhD in mom, but she studies insects. That's what she did professionally from British Columbia for a long time. But now she does fantastic the Zoom class that Anne Marie, you want to know more about it? She is gardening in an island in the Salish Sea. It's 40 to 60 miles northwest of where we are right now. She's on Salt Spring. So it's really applicable.
Sign up for her monthly newsletter, and it's amazing. She's like, oh, you know, we're having all this snow, so don't do this, wait another week. It's the best local advice, and it's free to sign up, it's she's in the Wilson, I think that's CA, and it'll come up, and it's wonderful. So she saves you a lot of heartache. Free her monthly newsletter.
Yeah, super. Yes.
What do you look for in your volunteers and what kind of volunteer opportunities do you have?
Great, thank you. Good question. I thought about that. And I thought in terms of people who've been successful at Sweetbriar, well, the mentioned before was Pat doing it for she and 5 others were doing it for more than 10 years. And I think about the attributes that they have and what seems to work out best. So here are some things I'd like to share. This is a little different. Here's 4 things. A person's attitude, learning agility. So you don't need to know a whole bunch about gardening or about money, but being able to learn and willing to learn. Basically, stop doing it my way. And the thing about that is, I've learned from many of the volunteers. I see, yeah, that's right, we ought to do it like that, rather than a system that I set up. Because one of the volunteers showed me it's more efficient to do it this way, and it's less risky. I'm very safety conscious at the time. A third thing would be aptitude. And then adaptability. And we talked about adaptability earlier when I spoke of flexibility. It's good to be physically fit, being willing to, we're working outdoors. That's a good thing, but you don't have, it's not a matter of you have to lift 35 pounds or more. I try to make the job, provide jobs to people who have the aptitude and interest and skill of doing it. And we end up having doing certain jobs. Certain people do certain jobs because it works real well for them. So, and what this year, every year is different. But this year, there'll be a time in, April or May, in which we'll have a time at the Sweetbriar, invite people who have, would think that they'd like to be, consider me a prospective Sweetbriar, but like to know more about it. So that would be, at the Sweetbriar. Let's see, there should be a list of there, probably a yellow 5x7 or something like that. You can put your contact information there, and we'll contact you one next time. Did that answer your question? Yes.
Okay, you may not have right off the top of your head, if you share your organic fertilizer mix combination, or using element, or
Oh, yeah. Well, I use one that's, I get from the trader. It's 824. It's made from, chicken, derivatives and, with, some element added. I forget what it is. But brought that information.
but that would have involved the different.
Actually,
And then that's separate,
yeah, that's
so you have that separate.
right. That's separately. There are a number of, good, fertilizers, that are not petrochemical derived.
And your line would go on in the fall or winter on your farm?
The line goes on whenever I have the time, it's straight and the weather conditions, work out.
And you like that to sit in soil before you're planting?
I find it doesn't seem to make much difference. What I end up doing, when I got the soil test done a number of years ago, they said, oh, put 6,000 pounds per acre. Or just put it on at a nominal rate on a daily basis, kind of yearly basis. So I put on 100 pounds per square feet, actually, both gypsum and, chemical fertilizer.
Are you using your, any wood ash?
No, I stay away from it. Because I don't have the experience with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But chicken manure, if we've aged it a while, what, can any of us that can put our hands on organic fertilizer, chicken manure, or other things here on the island?
If you have a problem or an issue with your soil, the answer is always organic matter. If your soil is too sandy and doesn't hold water, add organic matter. If your soil is so full of clay oriented and doesn't drain well, add organic. It's virtually always the answer. Now, the type of organic matter you choose, that can make a difference. If it's well-aged, combination of steer manure, chicken manure, aged well enough. I'll buy it.
I'll trade this variety of my big farm, but the last question is, the weeds that are open exposure and you're in a situation that where I live, the cover crops I know you use for weed suppression, but what other are you using? Straw, are you using just landscape fabric? Give a quick summary of your best methods.
For controlling weeds or for?
Yes, weed suppression.
The best, keep the weeds down. When they're that small, get rid of them. That's. Well.
That's what?
So what we use at the farm is, what we call tiny hay. It is quite literally, I have a machine which you can take leaves of, square straw or hay and put it in the machine and it shoots it out. Just little bits comes out like that. I think it was designed so you can have good bedding for young animals. Back in the day, well, I don't, so I used it before was to put it in the pathways and we put it, bed the plants down for good stuff. To keep the weeds down. It does a lot of things. It keeps the weeds down. it, prevents so much evaporation. So with some beds that are well mulched in that kind of fashion.
You can
Well,
do it yourself.
I deep water them 6 times. a year.
So that's even more than your first.
Yeah, and then, but you have to learn how to work it. So what we do, we don't get straw to do that, but we have some pasture, so I just mow it, let the grass, the pasture grass, which isn't very tall at that point, dry, and then we gather it up and put it on the plants.
So it hasn't gone to seed yet, or maybe some.
Ideally, before it goes to seed. That always happens.
Thinking about that.
Well, that's true.
Or weather, you know, that you're completely out guard on whatever is happening to you.
Yeah, it's really difficult with the weather sometimes, absolutely.
Thanks for answering all my questions. I think you're volunteer.
Anything else, sir? Lynn?
So it's gonna need volunteers? One.
Yeah.
Have you seen Scott Cabot's garden?
Could you say that again?
Scott Patch, you know, he's an architect, he has a garden, big garden. And everything's on, you know, plumb lines, it's the only garden I've ever seen in my life, so, recommend, just looks like a picture from the book.
Yeah, ours doesn't look like a picture from the. That same book.
Okay.
Who has another question? Thank you so much.